Hello, this is Pixel Freak, and today I'm taking a look at a game that I find to be kind of controversial. It's called Rogue Miner, and it just came out on Android in the last week. It's been out on iOS now since February, but it didn't make a very big name for itself on iOS, and I can understand why. The game feels a lot like it's still in beta. There's some animations that I really wish were a little bit better, and there's some game mechanics that I kind of feel maybe aren't polished, but at the same time, as I played the game more and kind of worked towards my review, I found myself highly addicted to this game. So let's go ahead and jump into it, and I'll tell you how the gameplay breaks down. So the game starts out and you play as a rogue who happens to be, big spoiler, a miner, and you're on this overworld map, and the goal of the game is to mine out resources, build up your equipment through crafting and buying more resources, and then go and kill these 3 or 4 bosses that are in these specific dungeons. But really, I mean, the goal of the game is to raise up your gear. You need better swords and you need better pickaxes to get more equipment, and you're just kind of building yourself as you go. It's a puzzle adventure RPG, which is a really weird mixture of genres, but it actually works pretty well together. So each time you jump into a dungeon, you're given a quota of gems that you have to get to complete that dungeon. There's tons of dungeons out on the world map, but in the very beginning, you can only go into the grass field dungeons. Once you go in there, you'll get a small quota of gems because it is the level 1 dungeon. But also in these dungeons, there's monsters and there are ore resources. And the ore is what you use to build up your equipment. So you want to get as much ore as you can and kind of avoid and kill the monsters as you go through. But you also need to be getting those gems to reach the quota so you can get back out of the dungeon and kind of save your hide. The 2 constraints you have while being in the dungeon are your torchlight and your life. So the life gets taken down by the enemies that hit you, and the torchlight goes down by every action that you take. If you attack an enemy, you'll lose 1 point of torchlight. And if you mine ore, you'll lose between 1 and say 3 or 4 energy or torchlight energy as you're mining through. So you have to kind of plan out like a puzzle where the torches are in the level, how you're going to mine to get the resources, and how to get back to the torches before you run out. If you run out of torchlight, you're going to take damage and you're going to die. If the enemies attack you too much, you're going to take damage and you're going to die. So the idea is to get as much as you can out of each level and then meet your quota and get out of the dungeon. Once you meet your quota and you escape the dungeon, you're awarded so many experience points based on what level or what type of the dungeon it was, and then you can actually level up and then put points into your various statistics. There's also a very interesting magic system that you can build towards as you level up. You can put points into your magic, and you receive magic along with the ores in each level, and you can use those to mix with your miner's pickaxe and with your sword to cast spells as you're playing through each dungeon. As you progress through the game, more and more dungeons will be unlocked to you. There is a tiered system, so to start, you can only do the field ones, and then eventually you can unlock forest, and you can unlock the desert ones, and then there's water temples, and so on and so forth, until you're able to actually go into the boss dungeons and go in there and kill the bosses that are in these levels. Once you've done that, you've completed the game, and game over. So the addictive part of the game is pretty obvious. It's the character building and the weapon building and the constant mining. It can actually become somewhat of an addiction as you're trying to constantly build more equipment so you can go to deeper dungeons or more dangerous dungeons and continue to build up your character. What was a little bit more of a turnoff in the game were some of the more minute details. For instance, the animation of the main character. Rather than being a sprite that actually had movement, it's just a sprite that changes directions. And so there's, 4 different sprites for each direction, up, down, left, and right. However, there's no walking animation, so when you push forward, it doesn't really look like your sprite's moving anywhere. Your character just shows the same picture as you're going around. It's a small detail, but to me it kind of made a little bit of a difference. There's also some kind of weird gameplay pieces where the game's kind of complex, and though there is a manual buried in the game, some weird things that I had seen were like you'd open the store and try to sell things, and for some reason I wasn't able to sell pickaxes, so they just accumulated in my inventory. Now there may be a way to do that, but I couldn't really figure it out. You can sell ore, but I wasn't able to sell the first tier of ore. So again, the first tier of ore just kind of built up in my inventory, whereas subsequent tiers of ore I was able to actually sell and make money and then buy new ore. Little pieces of the game like that kind of felt either confusing or maybe not quite polished off yet, and because of that, I really wasn't sure exactly how to feel about this game. My overall thoughts on the game is that I'm not going to not recommend or recommend this game. I'm going to say it's going to be up to you. This is the kind of thing where if you're into pixel art, this might be a game for you. The soundtrack is amazing. If you're all about soundtracks, there's a few different tracks in this game and they are all very catchy. The gameplay overall is actually pretty good. I was pretty happy with that, but some of the little minor details actually kind of got to me, or I was confused by why things worked the way they did. It's going currently for $2 on the Google Play Store. Not a bad price for a game that's going to take you quite a few hours to actually complete. While I'm going to leave the final purchase decision up to you, as it always should be, for me, this was a pretty fun game. Rogue Miner weighs in at 79 pixels out of 100. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, this has been Pixel Freak.